Hi, you are in the ladies' room with Dr. Donica, the only public ladies' room you can enter anytime without ever waiting online. I'm your host, Dr. Donica Moore. We'll be having real conversations with real women about really intimate issues. They may be embarrassing, sad, or funny, but they will always be interesting and informative. You know, like the best conversations you've had in ladies' rooms with your best friends, or total strangers and a physician. Please join us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Today we have New York Times best-selling author Diane Chamberlain with us in the Ladies' Room. And I am so excited not only to hear from her, but maybe we can get a sneak preview of her next book, which is coming out in October. Now, just as she gives us in-depth inside looks into the lives of her characters in her 25 novels, today she will give us insight into her personal journey with rheumatoid arthritis. She's also going to discuss her upcoming feature story on arthritis.com, which we're very excited about. Now, if you've read Diane's books, you know they're complex stories about love, compassion, forgiveness, with a strong element of mystery and suspense. Her previous work as a hospital social worker and psychotherapist has given her a keen interest in understanding the way people tick, as well as giving her the background necessary to create realistic characters we can all relate to. Now, more than 2 decades ago, Diane was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, which changed the way she works. She wrote 2 novels using just voice recognition software before finding a medication to better manage her RA symptoms and to be able to get back to typing. Now, for anybody who has used the voice recognition software just to dictate a text, you know how complicated this can be. So Diane has told me that she feels very fortunate that her RA is now managed and that she's able to enjoy everyday activities like playing the guitar, as well as keeping up with a busy travel schedule. And she's going to tell us more about that. But first, let me tell you more about rheumatoid arthritis. RA is a systemic, easy for me to say, it's a systemic autoimmune disease in which immune cells attack and inflame the membranes surrounding various joints. Now, like all autoimmune diseases, it's usually chronic and relapsing and has no real known cause. It affects about 1% of adults worldwide and is twice as common in women than men. Estimates are that in the United States, it affects about 1.3 million adults. RA is the 3rd most common type of arthritis after osteoarthritis, which is the most common, and then gout, which is second. RA is also one of the more common autoimmune diseases, with incidence rates higher than a number of other conditions, including psoriasis, Crohn's disease, and type 1 diabetes, as well as lupus and multiple sclerosis. The classic symptoms of RA are inflamed, swollen, painful, or deformed joints. Unlike osteoarthritis, or OA, which generally affects a few joints at a time, RA is generally symmetric and affects many joints simultaneously. It can cause functional limitations in half of all of its patients within 5 years of the onset of the disease, and it also may decrease life expectancy as well. RA can also affect the connective tissues of the body and other organs such as the lungs, heart, and nervous system. Now, prevailing wisdom holds that arthritis is a disease of aging, and it's true that the incidence increases as we age. But even children and even infants can be affected from birth with a form of RA called JRA, or juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. This is a much more serious and complicated form of RA, which affects about 300,000 children in the United States. JRA is one of the most prevalent chronic illnesses among children, affecting more children than juvenile diabetes or cerebral palsy. Now, thankfully and mysteriously, some patients eventually do go into remission, but unfortunately, many others will battle the symptoms for their entire lives. Despite the recent availability of many breakthrough therapies, many patients go untreated because of a lack of awareness or education or access to good medical care. Now, unlike OA, there is no known cause for rheumatoid arthritis. It's believed to have genetic, hormonal, environmental, and other risk factors. But interestingly, we've seen a decline in the rates of rheumatoid arthritis since the 1950s, and there has been a suggestion that maybe birth control pills have played an important preventive and ameliorative role. Evidence also shows a cyclical increase in RA symptoms during menses. The transition into menopause can also exacerbate symptoms. Pregnancy, on the other hand, can cause symptoms to go into remission or even to improve. A symptomatic flare-up may occur at 6 to 8 weeks postpartum, however. Now, one of the independent risk factors for RA is never having had children. Pregnancy has a protective lifelong benefit. It's unclear if RA alters fertility, although some studies show that it may slightly increase tragic pregnancy outcomes such as miscarriage and perinatal or neonatal deaths. Family history also plays an important role in RA. Those with a first-degree relative with RA, like someone who's in your immediate family, mother, father, sister, brother, have an 3 to 4-fold increased risk of developing RA regardless of gender. And as with most chronic illnesses, lower socioeconomic status is associated with worse disease progression and worse outcomes in both men and women. American Black and white populations are equally affected, but certain Native American subpopulations may be at increased risk. Now, with that background as a primer, let's welcome Diane Chamberlain into the ladies' room to tell us her story. And maybe we can even get that sneak preview about her new book, The Dream Daughter, which I cannot wait to read when it comes out in October. Welcome, Diane, into the ladies' room. Hello, Diane Chamberlain, and welcome to the ladies' room.
Thank you so much for having me, Donica.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So tell me, have you ever done an interview in the ladies' room before?
I have not. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to be your first then. Just to kind of get started, our guests love hearing our stories from everyone. Most women have a story of their most unique, memorable, embarrassing memory from something that happened in a ladies' room. What can you share with us?
What comes to mind is a time that I was in a ladies' room and doing my business, and the door opened and I ran to keep the door shut, but there was a full-length mirror and the person coming in got a really good view, got to know me really well, really fast.
They got to see everything your mother gave you.
That's right.
I don't know why somebody would put a full-length mirror in the ladies' room.
I know, probably seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, I was just in the ladies' room in a hotel in Annapolis, Maryland. It had a full wall mural of 4 young sailors, all male, staring at me in the ladies' room while I was doing what I had to do.
Oh, that's intriguing.
That was not exciting. So anyway, I already talked about in the intro, we're going to talk about arthritis today and your experience with arthritis. Tell us your story. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, I was in my mid-40s, and actually it was rheumatoid arthritis, which is quite unique and a systemic type of arthritis. And it started with a very painful left foot. And it took a while to get a diagnosis because the presentation was unusual. And then it spread to my hands and my fingers. And I was unable to walk for quite a while. And the worst part was that I was unable to type. And as a writer, that was really very, very scary. So finally, I got good treatment and was able to type. But during that period was about a 2 or 3 year period that I couldn't type.
Hey.
I used voice recognition, and I wrote 2 of my novels using voice recognition. And then I eventually got a brace for my left foot and ankle, and I still use that today. I walk using a brace, but my hands are much better.
That's great. So now you're back to typing, or are you still using voice recognition?
I'm back to typing. Fortunately, I can type all day long.
Yeah, that makes the editing process a lot easier. My only experience with voice recognition software is when I dictate my texts. And I know that I have to read it very carefully because there have been some very embarrassing mistakes that they have had in the voice recognition.
I know. And if you don't catch your mistakes right away, then you can't remember. Sometimes they're so bad, you can't remember what it was you were really trying to say. So it was an exhausting process, but at least it allowed me to continue my career and my income.
Yeah, that's extremely important. And we know you're a New York Times bestselling author. I admit I have not read your 25 books. So I don't know, did you ever write in one of your characters having arthritis?
My intention was not to, but I was writing my book, The Secret Life of Cece Wilkes, and I was writing a scene, and the character, Cece, started limping. Sometimes my characters do things that I didn't anticipate. And all of a sudden I realized she's got RA. So then that added another dimension to her character and to the story. That's the only time.
How long did it take you to make the diagnosis in your character?
She actually followed my path in terms of it took a while to get her a diagnosis and to get her good treatment. And so really, when you look at her story, it does kind of follow my own.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I remember as a girl, I had been diagnosed with pretty severe scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. And it was not something anybody really talked about 100 years ago. But Judy Blume had written a book about a girl who had scoliosis. And she was my hero because of that. And so I'm sure there are many of your readers who are going to really resonate with this, because while rheumatoid arthritis is far less common than osteoarthritis, it's not uncommon. So there are going to be many of your readers who are going to appreciate.
Oh, I've heard from them, definitely. And I hear from a lot of readers who know that I have RA. I'm very open with RA. Right now, I've partnered with Pfizer to share my story on arthritis.com. So there's 6 chapters that I wrote from my diagnosis to current day on arthritis.com. And I'm already hearing from people that are inspired by that story, or that it resonates with them. So I'm really happy to have that opportunity to share my story in the hope that it helps somebody else.
That's great. What do you think is the most common feedback you get from other people about rheumatoid arthritis?
It depends on where they are in their own journey. People who are newly diagnosed are often very frightened. Mm-hmm. And that's what comes across the most is, I'm afraid my life is over, because it is a systemic disease and it has a lot of scary parts to it. And I like that I can send them to a site like arthritis.com, or I can tell them more about my own story and give them some reassurance that their life is indeed not over, and in some ways only beginning. Mm-hmm. So that's what I hear from people who are new to the illness, and people who've had it a long time are just commiserating with me. Yes, I know what it's like.
Now, I think one of the issues for people who've had an illness for a really long time is they may not realize that there are new therapies available. And of course, medicine is constantly evolving, and we're learning, and we're constantly doing research. I understand you're on a very satisfactory treatment regimen now, but I'm guessing it was not the same treatment that you started out at.
No, not at all. And you're right. There's so many advances being made in terms of treatment for rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases that we're very fortunate. In the beginning, they did not exist for me, and I sustained a lot of damage as I waited for something good to come along, something that would really work. So we are very fortunate to live in a time that there are options for us, finally.
And you said at one point you were having difficulty, or you were unable to walk. I know you've said you've had the brace, and I also, mentioned in your bio, in your intro, that you love to travel. So clearly you've either found a workaround or that's greatly improved. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I would say travel is not easy for me, but workaround is a really good word to describe what I do with many aspects of my life. Using the voice recognition was a workaround. For travel, a lot of times I use a mobility scooter. Mm-hmm. I'm going away to guitar camp this next week.
Oh, wow. Go you.
My mobility scooter is going with me because it's just too difficult for me to walk any distance. But I don't want to give up travel. I don't want to give up living my life as fully as I can. So I find ways to deal with the obstacles.
So how does playing the guitar fit in with having RA? And when did you take up playing the guitar?
Well, I started when I was a young teenager. I taught myself. And then when I got RA, I stopped because my hands just couldn't form the chords any longer.
Yeah, I'm guessing if you couldn't type, you couldn't
right.
play the guitar.
Exactly. So I gave it up for many years. And then a couple years ago, I picked it up again and I realized, there's still some chords that I can play. There's a lot I can't play. I can't do bar chords. My fingers just don't work to do many of the complicated chords. But I enjoy it so much that I just play the chords that I can play. And I go to a meetup guitar group and just enjoy the heck out of doing what I can still do.
Well, this guitar camp sounds fascinating. I admit I never heard of that for adults. My daughter went to a performing arts camp that had a rock shop, and she actually got to meet Adam Levine there.
Oh, wow.
The camp was called Frenchwoods, and Maroon 5 was actually formed because they formed as campers, and their bunk was maroon, and it was boys' bunk number 5. So maybe you'll meet some rock stars at your guitar camp. Anyway, what advice would you have for other people who have RA, wherever they are in their journey, about figuring out how to take this balance of still doing your life, but also respecting the fact that you have a systemic chronic illness?
I think what's important is not to panic. When you get that diagnosis, it's very scary, but to realize that by talking to your rheumatologist and coming up with a treatment plan to manage the illness, that's a really important start. Finding a support system is critical. One thing that has been hugely helpful for me is a mindfulness practice. In the beginning, I joined a mindfulness center that sort of taught me some techniques, but you really don't even need that. You just need to be able to stop numerous times during the day and think about what's most important in your life, the people that love you, the beautiful world outside the window. Those kinds of things are really what keep me going.
Okay, and when is your next book coming out?
Thank you for asking. October 2nd.
Oh, wow.
It's called The Dream Daughter, and it's very much a Diane Chamberlain book, but it has a little bit of time travel in it.
Oh, very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to start with that one.
Thank you.
And then I will work my way back to the one where you talk about your character with rheumatoid arthritis.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Donna.
Oh, it is my
delightful talking to you.
It is my pleasure. And I hope all your experiences in ladies' rooms going forward are as enjoyable.
Thank you so much.
Take care. And we'll send everybody to read your story on arthritis.com.
Excellent. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all we have time for today. But let's keep the conversation going on Twitter or Facebook at Dr. Donica. And please join us next week for another episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Real conversations with real women about really intimate topics.